action. Hello everyone! Following up the previous lectures, today we are going to talk about interlanguage. So as a summary of today's lecture, we are going to cover what interlanguage is. We are also going to talk about its main characteristics, and we are also going to talk about the importance of understanding what interlanguage is. Before I explain the concept of interlanguage, let's have a look at the word interlanguage. When we break it down into two words, inter and language, does it give you any clue of what the word interlanguage means? I'll give you a hint. Think about your first and your target language. In my case, my first language is Portuguese, and my target language has been English, so it means I've been learning English. My interlanguage would be my language which is in between my Portuguese and my English. So what about you? What is your interlanguage? What is in between your first and your target language? As you can see in the image here, and as I said previously, your interlanguage is in the middle of your first language and your target language. So it means that your interlanguage is a process, and it's a process that has characteristics of both the first and the target language. Interlanguage doesn't mean that it's a better version of your first language, or it doesn't mean that it's a simplified version of your target language. It is a continuous process and a continuous progress towards the goal of learning a second language. Larry Selinker in 1972 was the first one to introduce the concept of interlanguage. For him, developing second language learning knowledge is what best describes interlanguage. At this stage, you might be thinking that interlanguage is an accumulative process. However, if you're thinking like that, you're wrong. Interlanguage is a continuous process. Why? Because there are several overlapping stages. And even though a learner might reach a certain level in his or her interlanguage, he might fall back into a previous stage as learning another characteristic, another grammatical aspect, for example. So it means that our interlanguage is always developing, always being constructed. Our interlanguage has two main characteristics. It is systematic and it is dynamic. Thinking about what has been said so far and thinking about your own interlanguage, why do you think the main characteristics of it are systematic and dynamic? Can you relate your own learning to these characteristics? So let's start with systematic. Our interlanguage is systematic because it is an overall organized path. That means that all second language learners go through an overall path when learning a language, as the picture shows for you. All the languages have a lot of different characteristics. However, they have a set of principles and a set of rules that learners have to go through while acquiring it. However, at the same time the language learning is systematic, at the same time it has a certain path and a certain order, it is also dynamic. Why is it dynamic? It is dynamic because it varies according to each learner. Although learners may follow a similar process while learning a specific language, each of them will have a different length in each step, or each one of them might take a different route to acquire that. This depends on learners' personal characteristics, and it depends on also their learning environment, their learning input, their learning style, and a lot of other stuff. After everything we've said, why is it important to know what interlanguage is? Knowing what interlanguage is important for both teachers and learners. So think about yourself as a future teacher. Why do you think it is important to understand that? Firstly, it can help you to design materials, to design classes, and to help in curriculum development. And it also helps you to understand the learning as a stage process. Think about yourself now as a learner. Why is it important to understand interlanguage? It helps you to understand the process and the steps you go through while learning a language. And to finalize, for both learners and teachers, understanding interlanguage helps them to identify their mistakes or their errors and in which stage they are and what can be done to overcome them. So, after all that has been said, can you understand the concept of interlanguage? Can you understand your own interlanguage? Where are you in the path of achieving your own interlanguage? Thank you.